Good morning, friends. Ann here. Got my cup of coffee, got the Word of God, and today's reading is from Luke chapter 16, verses 1 through 13. Friends, today we are going to listen to another parable that Jesus told the people. He was specifically with this parable talking to his disciples, but there were also Pharisees there who were not really happy about what he was saying. But this is often one of the most misunderstood parables because at first reading, it seems like Jesus is glorifying or encouraging some sort of misdeed, that he is encouraging sin. And so we've got to look at the parable, look at the context, and see what Jesus is really saying. So here is the parable. There is this rich man who had a steward or a manager who was handling all of his investments and his wealth. And he was mismanaging the money. And so this rich man brought him in and said, hey, I'm going to pull all of your accounts. I'm going to pull all of your records, and basically you're fired because you have been mismanaging my money and you have not been honest. So then what the man did was he knew that he was going to be called to account. He knew he was going to be fired. And so he said, what am I going to do? How am I going to care for my future? And so he came up with this scheme where he would go to the people who owed the man money and he would cut their amounts by a certain percentage or a certain amount so that he would tell the people and clear their records if they had paid a part of what they owed and not all of what they owed. And then they would be indebted to this man so that when he lost his job, he could go to them. He would have friends. So he was using his wealth and his status and his influence in order to gain friends that would help him out in his time of need. So here's what it says. In verse 8, it says this: the rich man had to admire the dishonest rascal for being so shrewd. And it is true that the children of this world are more shrewd in dealing with the world around them than are the children of light. So what Jesus is saying is not that the man approved of what the shrewd steward had done with all of his dishonest dealings, but what Jesus was saying was he was making the point that people of the world, people who don't know him, people who are not believers, who are not part of the faith, are often more diligent and more concerned with the investment of their temporary physical money, their treasures, and they do whatever it is that they need to do in order to make more or to protect it. And he says, hey, y'all that are outside the world, you guys take more effort and time and energy in investing in the temporary treasures than those of us who have spiritual treasures that we just take for granted, that we don't even spend time and energy investing in. He goes on to say this in verse 9, here's the lesson. Use your worldly resources to benefit others and make friends. Then when your possessions are gone, they will welcome you into an eternal home. So what he's saying here is don't just spend lots of money and try to get popular. What he is saying here is that we are to invest our earthly treasures for an eternal purpose. He says this in verse 10, if you are faithful in little things, you will be faithful in large ones. But if you are dishonest in little things, you won't be honest with greater responsibilities. And if you are untrustworthy about worldly wealth, who will trust you with the true riches of heaven? And if you are not faithful with other people's things, why should you be trusted with things of your own? No one can serve two masters, for you will hate one and love the other. You will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. Friends, what would it look like if you and I put in as much effort into our spiritual life and eternal investments as we did our physical treasures and our money and our finances here on earth? I mean, think about how often you think, how am I going to get more money? How am I going to be able to have the resources to do this or that or the other thing? What if we put that much time and energy into developing our spiritual life and things that last for eternity? So the thing I want you to walk away with today is this. Care more about the eternal than you do about the temporary, and you will be a trusted servant. Have a good day.